Got it.
Okay, here we go. Let me start sharing again. Okay, so we're recording. Everyone can see the slides. If that's not correct, someone chime in and tell me, please. Okay.
Looks good.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get through some of the slides. We'll start talking, and obviously if there's questions along the way, please chime in and ask me or whoever is the right person. So yeah, we started the recording. We've got our sites. We are going over some milestones just as a reminder. So these are all ready to go and people know what's going on. I think we're all good on paperwork on Pecori's end. Our IRBs are done. So the real important part is, where are we? Like, where's the status? Where are we on all the different parts? So we're going to give a little bit of a progress update on the Medlist data submission part. These are some of these steps that hopefully people have been doing, have been making progress and giving us some information. If these don't look familiar, please reach out to us. Lizette has put together this data collection milestones to show kind of where each site is. So there's still a couple sites that we still have to go back and forth on the medication list. If there's questions about that, Lizette is working to set up meetings with individual sites with me, Brandon, Peggy, Mike Strife, etc. To help with that piece. So there's a couple of places there. Most of the places now have their med list up to date, ready to go, and are on to these meetings that we've had. We have their data contacts. We now have actually some data. We've reviewed some of the data from some of the sites. And as you can see on the last two columns, we've actually started to get some real world data from some of the sites, some combination of trauma registry data and or trauma registry data plus missed dose registry data pull information. So I'm going to pause here for a minute, just for I'm going to take a look, see if there's anyone on there that thinks they've put in data and is not getting credit for it. Now is the chance. But also if there's people that have data problems, you have the data and you can't upload it and get it to us at Johns Hopkins, or you need some help with it, this is the time to talk, especially if there's anything you think would be helpful for the other people in the group. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Okay. Hearing no questions, comments, issues, I do want to see, excuse me, if Brandon has anything from our end about the data. I know we've had a few people have emailed and said, I can't do it, I don't understand how the data works, etc. Brandon, maybe you could just explain again if there's any issues, kind of the nitty gritty steps for, hey, I have the data, how do I get it to the Hopkins group?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I heard from different sites is that centers security filters aren't allowing for sharing of data through our secure portal. And there have been a few challenges where we've had to send it back a few times, the invitation to share the data. I think that's the thing that I've heard most frequently as far as challenges with sharing the data. But we have had several meetings with several different sites trying to review the medication list and then reviewing sample data. So I think if there are any issues that are lingering with how to pool the data or how to share the data, either now or following up by email at a later point would be good.
And I will add one item that came up for one of the sites, which was here's kind of the summary is we have the data, we're ready to go, and now their site is not willing to share the identified information. And the reason it's important that we need this to be identified from the trauma registry is that we need to be able to link the trauma registry data to the missed dose data. And the way to do that, we think, is the combination of name, medical record number, encounter number, something like that, to be able to link those two things. And that is a critically important step. So we went back to that group and said, we really need to be able to link this. And that was why we went back and had the data use agreement to be able to share that information. So if anybody else is having any sort of concerns about that from their data privacy groups or anything like that, please reach out to me. I can certainly help navigate those waters as we try to figure out what that's going to look like, because we absolutely need to be able to link those two data sets.
And at least from the data that we've received so far, the complete data that we've received so far from one site, it does meet the specifications that we've presented on these calls. So at least one site has completely sent all of the data thus far.
Okay. So I think we've belabored that point of we're working on the data. We hopefully need to get it sooner rather than later. If you have questions, send me an email, send Brandon an email, and whatever we can do to get that part going. And I certainly gave an opportunity for asking questions, and I don't think there's anything else that jumps out. Okay, so that was the first thing to talk about. Lizette, did I miss anything on that topic?
No, I would just like to add, like, if there's anybody that's missing a document, or you feel like, you really just need to get it bumped to the top of your email, let us know. I mean, we just need to just keep us in the loop. Like, what is it that we can do to help you get these things checked off on our milestones? So feel free to reach out anytime. Yeah,
we don't want to be the bottleneck. We understand there's bottlenecks in every single research project. We're trying to shorten our timeline from so-and-so needs this, so-and-so needs that. Can you reach them? We're going to try our best on our end, on the Hopkins and the center end. So if you need something and you haven't heard back or something like that, maybe we just didn't know exactly what you needed, Lizette can definitely get you the right document as quickly as possible. Okay, great. I'm going to stop belaboring that point. And we're going to move ahead. So the real-time alert. So this is the next piece. Once you have the Medlist and all these other pieces built, the real-time alert is the important part. We've been getting information and we've been meeting one-on-one with some of the sites that really are getting very close to rolling out. You can't roll out until you do the nurse education, which we'll talk about later, but you really, really need to be able to have the data finding the missed doses in real time to be able to build this alert. So just as a reminder, these are the questions that when we meet and when we go over, you'll need to tell us about what you're doing. Each site has done it a little differently, and that's okay, but we do need to know exactly what you're doing and how it's working. So these are the information that you'll need to be telling us. There's a form to fill out that can go to Lizette. And then we've met, I think, with 2 sites now about what their rollout's going to look like, what their alert looks like, how it's going to fire, etc. Not just the technical parts, but also the, okay, great, what are the nurses going to do when they get it part as well. So this is kind of the next important step. We really want this thing to start going soon. Obviously the sooner the better. We were supposed to have been up and running with some of the sites by now. We were hoping at least within the next few weeks to get at least 1 or 2 of the sites started. Same thing. I will open this up again for questions because, these one-on-one questions have been super helpful. And I bet there's some that might apply to more than just your site. If anybody's willing to chime in and ask a question or a comment or anything like that.
But I will reemphasize the importance of finalizing your medication list and pulling the data, the pre-implementation data, because ensuring that what you are pulling for those data are critical for building the alert. You can get various things underway with the alert, but you really cannot build it until you know what you're firing on.
And I think to reiterate on what Brandon just said is, you don't want to do these things in series. You want to be working on your medication list and know who's going to build your alert, how you're going to build it, where it's going to go, a lot of these questions, so that once your med list is ready to go, you can just plug that part into the alert, and you've already had those discussions with the build team, so that you shorten the amount of time from now until the alert can actually start firing.
Elliot, can I ask you a question? I met with our team. I met with our team, and it was a pretty encouraging discussion of kind of building this alert. One detail that I may have missed. Do you know, in your experience, what time frame does the what time frame does the alert get triggered in terms of how long after a dose is not given is that dose considered missed if it's not marked down? Because I think it's one thing for them to acknowledge that the dose is not given, but is there any kind of fail safes? So if the dose is just not given, that an alert is automatically generated?
I think, let me clarify, I understand the question before I answer it. So you're saying that there's two pathways to miss a dose,
Yes.
right? There's one where the nurse says and documents dose not given for, and there's often a reason.
Right.
Some of them are, patients off the floor, patient refused, whatever. So that should fire immediately. So the way ours works is it's in real time, you click that, and then quote unquote, immediately that fires to the, to our pager. So that's part number one. I guess the second part is, and I think I understand it, the dose is not marked as given or not given. It's just kind of floating out there in the ether, that the nurse hasn't given it yet, but hasn't documented either way. We have not gone down the pathway of doing anything with those doses yet. It's a little harder to do those, but I think it's a fair question. We have not set an alert for that, but I will make sure Brandon would agree. Brandon, is that correct? Am I doing something wrong, or is that correct from our end?
That is correct.
And I guess the other part to that question, and again, I may have missed this, is that are there which you just kind of grouped all those together, like patient off floor, held for surgery. Is there do you differentiate the reasons for the missed dose?
So we do not in, our registry. Take a step back. The reasons are very important because you're going to want to do different things for the intervention. And if you look at the back of the badge card, there's kind of two halves. There's the patient refused pathway versus the missed for other reasons pathway. We do not send that in the alert. The alert gives the information about the patient, name, room number, dose, time, floor, like that information, but it does not say the reason for. So what we've done some intervention on, and I don't see Doreen on yet. She told me she was going to be on late. I knew that. So Doreen would get this alert and then would go to the medical record, look up the dose, and then it would say, oh, patient refused, patient off floor, held for blah, blah, whatever it is, and then have the information to decide how to move forward as the next step. So we have not included it in the alert. If you're dying to do that and your team thinks it's easy, I don't have a problem with it, but we have not gone down that pathway before.
Elliot,
does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Elliot, it's John at Christiana.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, we actually did build it that way. So we actually have two different alerts, one specific for a missed dose and one specific for a refused dose, and actually tailored it a little bit so that on a refused dose, it actually has, some instruction about the patient education versus just the missed dose where the patient education piece wouldn't be automatic. So we actually did build it exactly that way, separate, so that depending on what reason gets selected, it tailors to what alert is sent out.
And that's perfect. If you guys want to make a more complex alert, totally, we can certainly do that. Obviously we'll make sure we know what those look like. We'll describe that as we're describing this out to the other places, but don't feel as though you have to. you could certainly put it upon the person who's going to get the alert to look into it and figure out what the issue is. But that's a great
Yeah.
point. And I know, John, you guys are very close to getting your alert up and running and out there. And, I'm curious if you want to tell us where you are, how close you are, cheerlead on for the rest of the groups. If there's anything else you want to say about your alert.
If you're okay with me taking a minute, I don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I'd love it. Thank you.
So we're actually, so we had actually built our alert a while back. We did a 2-part alert system, one for patient refusal, one for a missed dose. We built an alerting, we had planned an alerting system that goes along with a refusal, and that's actually what's holding us up. So in addition to a Vocera alert, there would actually be a task that would generate for the nurse to be able to document that they did the education. That was the piece that we're waiting to finish up, and that's actually what's holding us up. So we actually have it set that when an alert goes out for either one, it goes to myself, it goes to the nurse educator, it goes to the charge nurse. For a refusal, there's an additional task that gets amended to the particular patient's chart so that the nurse working with that patient that day actually has a task to document against that the education specific for that learning was done as well. So as soon as, unfortunately, the Cerner, who's our provider for the EMAR, they have to build the alert, and that's actually what's holding us up. Is just we're just waiting for Cerner to finish that piece, and then we've been doing concurrent education, going over education periodically as we get closer, and then doing a push when we think we're live. So hopefully Cerner will get back to us with this piece in the next couple weeks. And once we have that, we're actually going to go live and see how it works.
Which is great. And I know we met one-on-one with John, and the rest of the group doesn't know all this part, but I think the important things to take away from him are, it takes a while to build the alert, number one. The technical build takes a little piece. Number two, you have to decide who it's going to go to. And we went back and forth with John and his group, but I think the redundancy I personally like, the charge nurse, the nurse manager, and John all at the same time get this alert. So if it's during the day, if John's around, you get that alert. He can silence it so he doesn't get it at 3 a.m. But that knowing who it's going to go to, I think, is a really, really important part. And as you know, as a reminder, you can't do the alert until after your data is good. So as you noticed, Christiana gave us the data, and they're getting close on this alert. So keep plugging away, everybody. If you have questions, like I said, I'm happy to help. Brandon's happy to help with any of the technical expertise part on the alert. If you need meetings with me, Brandon, anybody else, you can go through Lizette. You can email me directly. We can go with that. But thanks,
Can I
John,
ask
for
you
telling me.
a question? Did that, we looked into Vocera, but we use Epic, and I was not able to, but that's not possible. It sounds like Cerner does let you automate contact to a Vocera. Does anyone else use Epic, and have they found a workaround for getting to Vocera? We did end up requesting all our charge nurses have pagers, so the pagers do communicate that way, but Vocera has not been possible for us.
So I will tell you, we are in the process of moving from pagers to the alert going directly to our phones. To make it as easy as possible, of course, each hospital has a different phone type. So one hospital has Vocera, another hospital has Volt. Like, it's not quite as easy as you might think at Johns Hopkins Hospital Health System. And we're trying to do it as a health system. So I can't tell you that we've actually done it, but I can tell you that they're working on it. So it might be that when they say they can't do it, I don't know that it's a purely technical Epic Vocera interaction issue. It might be, and we've been asking places, hey, are you the first person asking to do this? Or are you glomming on to something that other people have already done for other things? So I think those are the types of questions to ask. If you're going to be the first person, just anticipate it's going to take even longer, uphill battle, people complaining about it, etc. That's kind of the general idea. Have other people had any more luck, or are actively working on the groups to send messages directly out of Epic to their respective cell phones that the nurses carry, or the whatever technology people are using?
I can chime in. This is Dave, Techno Dave, not Science Dave, from Stanford. First, Laszlo, your earlier question, I don't know if there's a standard. I think we're building our alert to trigger 30 minutes after a missed dose. Yes, on directly entering, but then also if a window has been put in, I believe we're triggering half an hour after that. And then the other question, to answer the other one, we haven't yet built it, but we're in the process of going from Epic best practice advisory to a Volt, an actual call on a Volt phone to the charge nurse in the 2 wards. So that's the path we're taking for notification.
And I think that's a perfect example of, each place is doing this a little bit differently, and the technical capabilities and the technical, it's going to sound bad, the technical interest of the technical people in this project and how much work and time and energy they're going to put in. I mean, Technical David from Stanford, thank you for being on the call.
Sure.
Other places, I realize that you haven't quite had as much buy-in. I totally understand, but we do need to figure out some way to get some sort of alert to the someone who's going to do something about it, if that makes any sense. And if people would rather, discuss this offline for their individual site, send me an email with some information. We can set up a time to talk. We can, you all have my cell phone. If not, I can, if you email me, I'll give it to you and we can find a time to speak about it. It's hard. It's not the same way every site. In some ways, it's for those of you who've done, multi-center randomized controlled trials where you have the same IRB and the same exact protocol. It's just different. This is just a different kind of project. So thanks for slogging away and working on it. Okay. Any other questions? I think we've belabored that point. Like I said, reach out, talk to us, tell us whatever you need. Okay, let's see where we are. Okay, so we're moving ahead on the nurse education module. Here's the numbers. So we've got, 1,000 total people who've completed this. Project numbers about 880. And in that last column, you can see the percent completed. We've talked about this before, about half the sites are over this 80% mark, which is great. Thank you. There's a few more that are closing in on that 80% mark. And then there's a few more a little bit behind. But when we showed these numbers to Picori site by site, they were super excited to be able to see it, number one, and they were happy to see that many sites were doing really well. And they are excited for the other sites to catch up. We'll just call it that. Is there anybody who wants to, I don't know that there's much more to say about this, besides just keep plugging away. If you're one of those sites that isn't yet green, please keep plugging away to get as many nurses as possible to do this. I know different sites have tried different ways, reminders from the nurse leadership, reminders from physician leadership, reminders from physicians via email versus when you're on the floor making rounds, doing those pieces, whatever we can do to try to get up to that 80% nurse education piece, because you really need that part to be able to move forward with the what are we going to do when the real-time alert goes off? Any questions, comments about this, these data? And then along with, just as a reminder, along with this, there's a survey at the end, and we have nearly as many people as filled out the survey. It's a quick, easy piece at the end, which we'll be sharing some of that data with once we have kind of looked at it all. So any questions or comments on the nurse education piece? Okay, keep plugging away. You guys are doing great. I do have one question, which is, we send an email out every week, and it's not we, it's Ashley. She sends an email out every week with data site by site. For the sites that are already above 80%, and you're getting like no more each week, do you need that email? to keep coming? Do you want that email to keep coming? Is it just annoying and an extra email that you don't need? I think if you've done your big major push and you've, hit the mark, I don't know that we need to keep pushing it, but I would figure I'd bring it up here for a conversation.
From our standpoint at Christiana, we're fine if you want to continue it.
Okay.
There's I just brought this up with our charge nurses. There have been I don't know if everyone's like us, but we've had a lot of turnover even the past 6 to 12 months. What I anticipate though, is there may be more people interested in taking the training as we roll this out. And I think that might be nice to see in terms of if we make another push in the future.
Okay. So that's 2 votes for keeping it continuing.
This is Kristen from Stanford. I think we're fine getting the emails.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I don't want to speak for Shelley, who's not on the call, but I'm sure it's fine. She has no issue with it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're fine with that as well.
So I guess we'll keep those going. If they get to be too onerous and too annoying, please tell us. But we'll keep the data rolling out each week. And, especially if you're already at 85, 90% and you have a week with nobody signing up or nobody doing it, that's okay. It will be interesting to see if when you actually roll this out and there's some last lingering people who hadn't done it, if all of a sudden we see some other people taking it as well. So I think that's a reasonable thing to look at. Okay, perfect. That's an answer to that question. Thank you, guys. Okay, plowing ahead. Materials for launch, materials, peer coaching, etc. I'll show it again, and just hopefully people have seen these pieces and are ready to go with these pieces and know what these look like. So you should have gotten all these customized materials. Lizette has sent out posters. We've got these badge cards. The bottom part right here is the front and the back of the badge cards that people will start carrying it as a reminder of what to do when the alert goes off. This one down here in orange is a little postcard, and on the other side of it has 2 QR codes, one that goes to the paper materials, one that goes to the video. So hopefully you've gotten all this stuff and are ready to go. Questions about that? Or you guys, someone give me a thumbs up that seems right.
Yeah, and I'll just add on that for John and Dr. Warner, they provided the info on their breakdown on how they're proposing to get all this out to the patients. So they are, there's 3 components: the face-to-face, the video, and the education. And so they are going to be providing the video via the link located on the postcard. So it does have the QR code. They're going to use that. And then they have some iPads in their trauma program that they're going to be lending to patients.
Omar and Derek were both aware of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, Omar did email me back and say, in what areas were we short? Could we have done anything? And I basically responded to him. I'm like, we're limited to one coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
There is off-hour research pharmacy, but you would have to have somebody that, out of the trauma bay would be designated to run down to get the drug to come back up. And in the middle
Hey,
of the
John.
time,
Hey, John, I think you might be on 2 separate calls.
I even sent out an invitation back to him and said, I'm more than happy to further discuss this with you. And after I answered him, I haven't heard back from him. So,
Hey, John Getchall, I think you got something else going on. To what Lizette was saying, I think it is important to figure out the logistics of how you're going to do these pieces of the patient education bundle. Some places want pre-printed handouts. They're doing it on 1 or 2 floors, and they're going to have it a big stack in English and a few in the other key languages. Others are going to print it on demand. Some are going to have a tablet ready to go, and you hand them an iPad to do it. You just have to figure out how you're going to want to do this at your site. There is no one right answer. You can link within Epic MyChart to this video. We've imported it in there and put it in Epic MyChart bedside, so it's available on that tablet that they use for MyChart bedside. But you don't have to do it that way. You can show it directly from the internet using that QR code to take you there. But so I think as you decide what the rollout looks like and you have this alert going, part of it is the technical build. Where's the alert going? Who's going to get it, and what device they're going to get it on. And then the second half is, okay, well, these are the pieces. And the general gist is who is having the conversation, how are they getting a paper handout, and how are they going to watch a video? So do these questions, does that make sense as you're planning this whole piece at your site? That's going to be an important piece of what you're doing. Questions or comments on that? Okay. And I realize not everyone has an answer to all these things yet, but you know, when you're ready to go live, hopefully there's an answer to each one of these things. The other piece is, excuse me, that we need to make sure that all the sites are using all the data and all the information and all the people they have to their advantage. Doreen is our local expert. You've all met Doreen, you've heard her talk. She is great. She has done these interventions on literally hundreds and hundreds of people in a bunch of these studies. She is the local expert on how do you do this. But in addition, she's also the local expert on how do you teach a ton of nurses to do this. So as we rolled this out to 9 floors at our community hospital and 20 floors at our main academic hospital, Doreen was the face of this. Doreen would go talk to the nurses at huddles, at shift change, spend some time on the floor, et cetera. And she's willing to do the same for all the different sites in some combination of face-to-face versus virtual. We've said it again, you know, hey, Christiana is pretty close. Happy to come for a ride. Maryland is literally just across town. Lancaster's not that far. For Doreen to come up for any sort of education session or face-to-face time or huddle, wherever you think it's the right place to go to touch base with those nurses, Doreen's willing to do that. In a virtual setting, it's the same thing. She's willing to get up and, you know, talk to people not morning, noon, and night, but, you know, certainly if you need people on off shifts, she's willing to do that part as well. So you've got her contact, and as you're getting ready to roll this out, she would be very helpful, and we'd love to have her go at least once or twice to each site to have some face-to-face time with the nurses there. Questions, comments about that? I know she's been back and forth with some sites that feel like they're getting close. The hard part is you don't want to do this way in advance because then the nurses don't know what the alert looks like. They're not ready for it, et cetera. So you can't do it too far in advance, but as you're getting ready, just remember to please use Doreen as a resource. She'll be very helpful.
Yeah, just shoot me an email, or my phone number is available. I'm more than happy to discuss, you know, what your needs are versus what I have available written already, or we can, you know, be available for any types of meetings you'd like me to come to.
And I will say that, you know, what John has done in Christiana, the decision was he gave a link to the video that Doreen has done that's directed at the bedside nurses about kind of the what to do. He sent that link out to everybody. And then the idea is once it's up and running, Doreen will do some of these, like I said, real-time pieces, some face-to-face, some Q&A part, so people can ask questions of someone who's actually done this, as opposed to asking questions of, you know, you guys as the PI or the research team. Okay. Perfect. That's moving ahead. The Delphi survey. So I'm trying to see if the okay. So we sent this out a couple months ago. Our goal was to really get a bunch of responses from everybody. Here's where we look as far as numbers. So first of all, thanks for all the teams that have sent things out. We've got, you know, almost 160 responses, split half and half between trauma acute care surgeons and non-trauma acute care surgeons, which is great. As you can see on here, most of the sites ended up into the double digits. there are 1, 2, 3, 4 sites that are a little bit behind. And I was hoping before we close out round 1, that we could get those other sites to get us some participants. So as a reminder, Delphi is an iterative process. So all these 157 people have given their opinion. And the next round, when we close round 1 and then send out round 2, they'll get another email which shows their prior answers along with the data and the opinions of the other 156 people, so that they could potentially look at that and see if that might, their minds or their opinions may be swayed and they might change their mind. So this is where this iterative process comes in. If they have not done the first part, they won't get invited to the second part. So the only people who are going to get invited to the second part are those 157. And I would love to have those last 4 sites be able to get at least, maybe 10 people at each site. If we could potentially do that, we get up to 200 people, we get a little more variation. So I feel like it's, instead of it being, 7 sites, it's these 11 sites. So just, if I could ask the people that haven't quite made that double-digit mark to resend out some emails. I know some people had done that. Some targeted emails really work. It worked well for me. I know it worked very well for the Oregon group. I know Stanford did the same thing. Targeted emails, dear ortho team, dear vascular team, dear trauma partners. Those questions, it is not a very onerous thing. And as a reminder, each of you as the PI, feel free to fill it in as well. So that's an easy part too. So that's where we are. We'd like to get a little more numbers before we close that out. We had originally planned to close it out the middle of this month. I think we're going to give it another couple weeks to try to see if we can get those other sites some more of some more responses. Any questions on that? I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay. The only announcement we have is for those of you who don't know about it or haven't heard, Center is hosting 22 consensus conference on optimal VTE prophylaxis and trauma. It's a 2-day conference. There's a hybrid version. There's still some open seats available. We open up more seats. It's in Chicago the first week of May in person. So if anybody's really interested in the topic, and I think you all are really interested in the topic because you spent time and energy on this project and you want to come in person, you can still sign up for some of the in-person seats. If not, and you want to listen, or you have other people that may be peripherally interested and want to listen on day 1, that hybrid option is free. The link is right here, bit.ly VTE conference. And if that doesn't work, I can help you find it. Lizette can help you find it for anybody who's interested in this, in the conference coming up. The way the second day is going to work, there's some lecture, but there's more breakout sessions where they're going to be groups breaking out to talk about what are the next big important projects in VTE and trauma. What are the projects? Who's going to write a grant to get submitted as a big multi-center project? Where are they going to target it, et cetera? So for the people who are interested in that next step, that's kind of what's going to happen at least part of this meeting. So the idea is to come out of this meeting with 3 or 4 big ticket, large scale grants like this one, like CLOTT 1, et cetera, to be potentially going to all different places about VTE and trauma. So just a shameless plug if anybody's interested in coming.
And Elliot, this is Michelle. Could I add just a little info to that, please?
Sure, of course.
Great. So we have, thank you. We have 42 people who are planning to attend in person. And we have about 60 that have signed up to participate, via Zoom events. And on the second day, as Elliot was saying, the morning will be available as hybrid. It'll be a continuation of the research topics that were discussed on day 1, and some new topics, and also some presentations from some folks from AHRQ, PCORI, DoD, NIH about funding and research interest in this area of VTE prophylaxis. And then in the afternoon, that's when we'll have the breakout sessions and the brainstorming, really getting down to the meat of, what are we going to be doing next as a consortium. But unfortunately, only the folks who are in the room are going to be able to participate in that. But there is still time, as Elliot was saying, there's still time to sign up online at the bit.ly, or you can just take a picture of the QR code you're seeing on his slide. We would love to have you participate either way. And everything will be recorded. So if all goes well, we'll be putting the recordings of everything except the breakout sessions, of course, on our center YouTube page in early May. And if you are on our constant contact list, you'll get an email when those are.
I think Michelle might have frozen. But I think she said everything I think that's important to know. The last piece is we were very limited on space. The meeting is at the American College of Surgeons building. They were at 50% capacity due to COVID. So that's where that number 42 came from. If you're wondering, I know it's the answer to the universe, but that was the cap. They have opened it up a little bit more. So now there's a few more spaces. So if people had tried to register in person and couldn't, you can now hopefully take one of those spaces if you're more heavily interested in it. And like I said, please pass it on. There are likely people that are, want to learn more about the topic, but really aren't going to be the next generation helping write these grants. And if they want to watch hybrid, the first day and a half, that totally works. But if there's the people here that are really interested in the research part, really interested in the funding, want to help be involved in those pieces, if you can make it there, that'd be great.
Hey, Elliot, it's Michelle. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I know you broke up. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I think maybe the only piece that y'all didn't maybe hear is that we will have these recordings available on the center's YouTube site in the early May. So we'll send out announcements about those too.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sure. So with that, I think that was the last announcement. I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm not going to make everybody stay on longer, et cetera, but I will open it up for Q&A. If there's anything that we missed, anything we forgot to talk about. The one thing that we've talked about in the past that is off this agenda for now is the IRB project. Thank you, everybody. You all gave us the information that we needed for that. And now we're trying to pull it together into a document to start, writing that and figuring out where to send that for publication. So it's off the list, but not off our working to-do list. It's just off the list of what we need from everybody at the sites.
Hey, Elliot, just a FYI for us, we're possibly having a nursing strike next week. So if that happens, we're going to be on standstill for a while.
I can't even imagine. I'm sorry to hear it. From a patient standpoint, good luck. And then, we'll catch you up when you can do it. I mean, if there's any possibility that any of the online other work, et cetera, can keep going, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, me neither. It won't happen, but we'll see.
Well, I know. We have all certainly had the, not a nursing strike, but we've all certainly had a lot of, hey, the nurses are busy with other priorities in COVID times. So we've all kind of dealt with that in different ways, but yeah, good luck with that. Okay. I think with that, I'm going to say thanks to everybody. Keep plugging away. You'll get a few more emails. I always get some emails right after this meeting of some specific thing people didn't want to talk about in the group, and that's totally fine. Please send me the emails and we can plow ahead. And